Welcome back to another episode of Ancient Historia. Just going to be having a look at some Tartarian cities and how they appear in modern day society. So the first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to track down some Tartarian cities. For that, I've returned to this document from one of our earlier videos, which spoke of Tamerlane and his journeys to conquer most of the world. So we're just going to scroll through this and identify some cities. So the first name that we come across, their name came to be first known and formidable in Europe about 1168 when they subdued part of Muscovy and settled in the Taurica Chersonesus, now the Crim. So on our map here, this is from 1607, I think. So we can see over here is Crimea, obviously, with what we would consider Crimea today. So this section just north of Crimea, where we saw on one map the Cossacks came from. This is where they first settled in 1168 after subduing part of Muscovy. They are said to have been oppressed by the king of Tenduk, whom they defeated and settled their leader Genghis Khan upon the throne about 1202. Have a look on the map here for Tenduk. Now, what do we find over here in the northeastern corner? Tenduk. We also have the Tartar Flu here, which is the Tartar River, and Tartar. So the positioning of Tenduk on this map is rather confusing. So we'll see if we can figure out where that is today. On the travels of Marco Polo, he talks of the province of Tenduk and the descendants of Prester John. He goes on to talk about Tenduk as a province which lies towards the east and contains numerous towns and villages, among which is the chief city, also called Tenduk. So as we can see in this image, we've got China down here with the Great Wall of China drawn onto the map here, what I can assume is the Great Wall of China. And up here is where we find Tenduk and Tenduk. You must know that it was in this same capital city of Tenduk that Prester John had the seat of his government when he ruled over the Tartars. But what we will note is that Prester John, as I think we've heard in other documents, does appear to be this king of Tenduk that we hear that was oppressing these people. Here also is what we call the country of Gog and Magog. However, call it Ung and Mongol, after the names of two races of people that existed in that province before the migration of the Tartars. Ung was the title of the people of the country, and Mongol a name sometimes applied to the Tartars. It also says when you have ridden 7 days eastward through this province, you get near to the provinces of Cathay. What we see here is the Tenduk, just as it said. So instead of Gog Tenduk, it is Tenduk. So this, we're talking about Gog Magog here. It gets a little bit weird, because if you search up for where the modern day Tenduk is, a place in China called Hohhot, sounds like a Pokemon, you'll notice that there are sections of the Great Wall of China at Hohhot, which would indicate that Hohhot is down here and not up here, where this map suggests. Now, obviously, these maps aren't 100% accurate. I would at least assume them to get the placement of the city correct if there were a giant wall there. So we're definitely looking at something north of China. We can't trust the topography of the map to definitely tell us where it is. It is pointing towards the northeast of Russia. There is a chance that this area is being expanded beyond its actual size. The section of the wall that goes through that is obviously, they call it Inner Mongolia, and it was supposedly built during the Ming Dynasty. That would be anywhere from 1368 to 1644. This map is from 1607. Hypothetically, they could have constructed the Great Wall up here in that 30-year period, but I don't think that's very likely, do you? All I will say is there seems to be quite a heavy distinction between Tenduk, the city, being up here near another place called Tartar and the Tartar Flu, and Mongol there, as you can see, being up here as opposed to this definition of where the Great Wall is. I would say that this is suggesting that Tenduk is a different place. this is the position of Hohhot, we're looking at something way more north for this Tenduk. I think what we're going to do for Tenduk today is we're going to put a little pin in that, and we're going to move on to find a different city. Next thing we see is about Tamerlane, is the 5th successor to the throne. Son to Og, king of Zagatai. His first war was with the Muscovites, who invaded Kazan and Astrakhan and pillaged his frontier. So here we are back on this map to see if we can locate some of these places. See here, Astrakhan. Up here, we can also see Kazan. So these two cities definitely belonged to the Tartarians. So this says he was born in 1335. So at some point in the 1300s, 14th century, we are looking at the Muscovites from Moscow coming from over here and attacking Kazan, Astrakhan, and pillaging his frontiers. Right, so we've located Kazan. We'll see what this has to say. So Kazan is the largest city and capital of Tartarstan. The city lies at the confluence of the Volga, population of over 1.3 million residents, 5th largest city in Russia. We've got the Volga here. Kazan became the capital of the Khanate of Kazan and was conquered by Ivan the Terrible in the 16th century, becoming a part of Russia. The city was seized and largely destroyed during Pugachev's rebellion of 1773 to 1775, but was later rebuilt during the reign of Catherine the Great. Following the dissolution of the Soviet Union, Kazan remained the capital of the Republic of Tartarstan. We can see on the top of this building, got a lot of griffins. Now, why are griffins important? This city itself has been around since 10th century, they believe. We have a copy of this photo that we will bring up because we got our own version of this. Now, don't forget, this city was completely destroyed and rebuilt. Completely destroyed and rebuilt. Completely. See, the walls are the same. Now have a look at this thing. This is insane. You once again have these griffins. The Russian government has been trying to ban the Tartarian language from being taught in the schools in Tatarstan.
These are the sounds of Tatar. Learning the language through song is how the ethnic Tatar Laysan Garayeva teaches it to her primary school students. That these Tatar children can still learn their native language is thanks to the school principal. He has refused to let go of his Tatar teachers in defiance of the Central Education Authority in Moscow. Last year, it had ordered an end to Tatar in Tatarstan as a required subject, prompting teachers to be fired.
It does seem to be a more basic form, more simplified version of the Tartarian language. It was supposed to have 202 characters in the alphabet. It was the same as the Ethiopian language at the time. This one definitely wasn't 202 characters. Like, you can look up the Tartarian language that they speak, you can hear how they talk. The city was founded more than 1,000 years ago. The estimated date of the urban settlement at the site of Kazan is 1004 to 1005 AD. So here we have a photo from 1767, well, an illustration. You got all this section of Kremlin, which is exactly the same in 1663. They've not changed this, so this is the same Kremlin from 1663. 1767, so there's 100 years have passed now. If anything, it looks the same, it's just drawn better. So it talks after the Mongols ravaged the Bulgar and Bila territories in the 13th century, so the 1200s, so that sounds like Genghis Khan or his son. The surviving Bulgars recovered in numbers, and a small number of Kipchaks were assimilated, from which they adopted their language, or Kipchaks and Bulgars mixed to create a modern Kazan Tatar population. So I came back to the Stolen History org that we were in our first Tartaria explained video, because I remember that we had this 1771 Encyclopedia Britannica that the Tatars who lie south of Muscovy and Siberia, I'm gonna go to Astrakhan, but Circassia, we got some bad news. Right, so we find out the Circassian genocide was the Russian Empire's systematic mass murder, ethnic cleansing, and expulsion of 80 to 97% of the Circassian population, around 800,000 to 1.5 million people, during and after the Russo-Circassian War. It was fought between July 17th of 1763 and 21st of May 1864, so 101 years. With the Russian Empire assuming authority in Circassia, followed by Circassian refusal, they had a 101-year-long war that ended with the genocide of the Circassian people. During the Russo-Circassian War, the Russian Empire employed a genocidal strategy of massacring Circassian civilians. Only a small percentage who accepted Russification and resettlement within the Russian Empire were completely spared. The remaining population who refused were variously dispersed or killed en masse. Circassian villages would be located and burnt, systematically starved, or their entire population massacred. Leo Tolstoy reported that Russian soldiers would attack village houses at night. William Palgrave, a British diplomat who witnessed the events, adds their only crime was not being Russian. In 1864 there was a petition from Circassian leaders to Her Majesty the Queen Victoria, and it was signed by Circassians requesting humanitarian aid from the British Empire. In the same year, mass deportation was launched against the surviving population before the end of the war in 1864, and it was mostly completed by 1867. Some died from epidemics or starvation among the crowds of deportees and were reportedly eaten by dogs after their death. Others died when the ships underway sank during storms. Jesus. The Circassian Tatars have been exterminated by the Russian Empire during the 18th to 19th century. Quite a dark turn this has taken, so we'll go back to Astrakhan, where hopefully we'll find a little less genocide. We're back on our map. Circassia is the region around here. It's where the genocide has happened. And down here is what you'd call Dagestan. Derbent is listed on this map, which is still a region of the Republic of Dagestan. So we'll have a look at Derbent, and we'll have a look at Astrakhan. So I think we'll have a look at Astrakhan first. So one of the first things you might notice, and it's a small picture, but we'll get a bigger one in a sec, is it has the same white Kremlin walls going around it as we saw in Kazan. Astrakhan is the largest city and administrative center of Astrakhan Oblast in southern Russia. The city lies on two banks of the Volga, in the upper part of the Volga Delta, on 11 islands of the Caspian Depression, 60 miles from the Caspian Sea, with a population of 475,000 residents. Astrakhan was formerly the capital of the Khanate of Astrakhan, a remnant of the Golden Horde, and was located on the higher right bank of the Volga. Situated on caravan and water routes, it developed from a village into a large trading centre before being conquered by Timur in 1395 and captured by Ivan the Terrible in 1556. But this document obviously says that his first ever battle was defending Kazan and Astrakhan, who had been invaded by the Muscovites. That would be the first thing that doesn't really make sense. The second thing that wouldn't really make sense is if that is his first battle. He'd done nothing for 56 years, and then he was like, you know what? Let's invade Astrakhan. That doesn't really make sense, does it? Not to mention, after this, he's supposed to then have a mini civil war at home, a bit of a revolution that he has to quell. He invades China and conquers the Chinese Empire. None of those dates really make sense. This document backs up what history says. Timur battled Bayezid, the Sultan of the Turks. Date for that was 1402 in history. The Battle of Ankara is 1402, and that's when it was fought between Timur and Bayezid. I'm just going to call him Tamerlane. But Tamerlane died in 1405 at age, it's conflicted, but they say like 66 to 69-ish. Then in 1402, he was having the Battle of Ankara. He would have been like 60, 65-ish, and really makes sense. After this battle, the Greek emperor swears allegiance to him, to Tamerlane. He actually offers him the empire, but Tamerlane says, no, you keep it, because Tamerlane wasn't stupid. He knew that you can't run multiple empires at once, which is what he did with the Chinese. So you have the empire stay in control, but you tell them what to do. So they still run their empires, but they're under your control. So Tamerlane gave the empire back to the Greeks at Constantinople after this battle, gave him back the Greek empire, which is what we know as the Byzantine Empire. Greek emperor and Tamerlane went on to conquer parts of Egypt, India, Persia, etc., which there is historical record for him going into Egypt. It was supposedly supposed to happen after 1402 according to official records. Here it is about the swore a perpetual alliance. After this, Tamerlane made war upon the Sultan of Egypt for assisting Bayezid, and he was joined by 10,000 of the Greek emperor's best horses, and he conquered Syria, India, Egypt, and the greatest part of Africa. In his return, he visited Jerusalem, paid his devotions at our Saviour's sculpture, and then he subdued Persia. This is a lot of war that's supposedly happening after 1402 when the guy is 65. He's traveling all over the world, conquering places. It doesn't make sense. After he'd done all this, he returned with great triumph to his own country and then to Tartary, where he had quiet possession of the empire after his uncle's death. Bearing in mind, this is after 1402. You're saying his uncle was how old? And then has died and given him quiet control of the empire. So no, these dates don't make sense. I'm going to try my best in the editing to keep this as concise and on point as possible. You see, the old Chan, the actual emperor, was his father-in-law. He had married the dude's daughter. According to this, he was related to Genghis Khan by blood. He marries the daughter of the actual emperor. He was given the throne as well because of all his conquering, but he married into making him official, okay? And they had a child together. And at the bottom here, it says that Tamerlane had quiet possession of the empire after his uncle's death. So the uncle is the father-in-law. See that down here. It says, this is earlier on obviously, this raised his character so much that the great Sham, his uncle by the father's side, gave him his daughter an heiress and appointed him successor. So after he's done this, after he has defeated the Muscovites at Astrakhan and Kazan, after he has invaded China, after he has defeated the Turks, saving the Greeks, and then taking over most of Africa, Egypt, Syria, India, and even Persia on his way back after visiting Jerusalem. So he's done all this, and now it says he has quiet possession of his empire after his uncle's death. We just have to find out when his uncle died. Tamerlane's wife is Sare Mulk Khanum. So this is her father. That must be the one related to Genghis Khan on the father's side, right? Surely? Khan of the Chagatai Khanate? Makes sense. Well, it says that he died in 1346. He died in 1346. I mean, Tamerlane would have been age 13 at this point. But either way, if he died in 1346, how could he have resigned the empire to his nephew and son-in-law? How could he have done that? And how could Tamerlane have enjoyed quiet possession of the empire after his uncle's death, if his uncle has died in 1346? Quiet possession of the empire after his uncle's death, and was joyfully received by his emperors, who had bore him a son during his absence. This is where it gets a little bit more convoluted, because according to official records, the wife we just saw, who was one of his wives according to these records, the wife we just saw never actually had any children with him, and if she did, then they all died. It does say that she was often referred to as the mother of his youngest son, Shah Rukh. Sarai did not have any children with Timur, though she is sometimes referred to as the mother of her husband's youngest son, Shahrukh Mirza, who was actually born of a concubine. So anyway, was he born 1377? His youngest son. This record is saying that he'd had a son, and then, I mean, it's saying it's her, and it definitely would be her because she's an empress consort directly related to Genghis Khan. If you look at Saray's Wikipedia, it'll even tell you that she is direct lineage to Genghis Khan. So this is the same person, but none of this information lines up. So, and as you can see, it says that he's had a son. So this is after all this, he's had a son. As he was on an expedition to subdue the Empire of Greece, the new emperor of which had made a league with the Turks, he was taken sick, which obliged him to return to his capital. We know that this is the empire referred to as like Byzantine Empire. I've gone really off topic, haven't I? I was showing you cities. Doesn't matter. Fuck it. Who cares? So anyway, just going to this is the Battle of Ankara that I was talking about. So the Battle of Ankara, or Angora, was fought on 20th of July 1402, the Kubuk Plain near Ankara, between the forces of the Ottoman Sultan Bayezid I and the Emir of the Timurid Empire, Timur, which is Tamerlane of the Tartarians. It was a major victory for Timur, and it led to the Ottoman integrum. So this is the battle that we are talking about in this book. His next expedition was against Bayezid, the Sultan of the Turks, at the desire of the Greek Emperor Palaeologus, whom Bayezid had besieged in Constantinople. 1402, according to official records. Tamerlane dies in 1405. He goes on and does all this stuff, and at the bottom it even says that he was on an expedition to subdue the Empire of Greece when he was taken sick, which obliged him to return to his capital, which was Samarkand, or Samarkand, but which is another city we'll go and have a look at in a sec. Now, it says that he had to subdue the Greek Empire because they changed emperors. Okay, so the first dude, Palaeologus, had sworn a perpetual alliance with these guys, but this new guy has sworn an allegiance to the Turks. So these guys have joined forces. Now that right there is the birth of what we call the Byzantine Empire today. This joining forces between the Greeks and the Turks. It's the Turkish taking over of the Greek Empire. So what's happened there is, as you can see, there's a new emperor. So we have to find a date for the change of emperors. Right, so here we are on John V Palaeologus, and he was in power over the Byzantine Empire from 1341 to 1391. Who takes over? Well, that is Manuel II Palaeologus, and he was from 1391 to 1425. We know Tamerlane dies in 1405. The Battle of Ankara occurs in 1402. Obviously, all these events happen in between 1402 and 1405, and then there's a change which causes Tamerlane to have to fight against this allegiance with the Turks, which is the Greeks and the Turks, becoming the Byzantine. So, that change of emperor would indicate that it's the change from John V Palaeologus to Manuel II Palaeologus, which happens in 1391. The Battle of Ankara can't have happened as it's supposed in the mainstream history, just because of these accounts that don't make sense. Also indicate that the Byzantine Empire became the Byzantine Empire with this change, maybe from John V to Manuel II. I haven't investigated any further. The only point that I'm bringing to this right now is that none of these dates make sense. Tamerlane burns it to the ground in 1395 during his war with the Golden Horde. No mention at all of like this book that says that it was already part of the Tartarian Empire, which was attacked by Muscovites. If we have a look at this picture of it from the 17th century. So again, we can see that same wall that we saw, and the thing is I don't know how old they're claiming it to be, But the fact that the Kazan won in 1663, the Kazan is exactly the same as it is today. That would insinuate that this wall was a lot older than you think. The Trinity Cathedral there. You can see all this antiquitech up top, with its wires even hanging down. I'm sure they're not connected. Quite evident, is it, that Kazan and Astrakhan were part of the same empire, or the same group, which is backed up by the evidence. Now here we go, have a look. You know what, I will say, I encourage all of you to go out and look at these cities for yourself and get back to me with any awesome buildings or weird mysteries you find in these places, because, you know, I'm only one dude, and as much as I love research, there's only so much one person can do in a day. Look at this. This is gorgeous. It almost, that building there reminds me of something you'd see in like Rings of Power, Lord of the Rings. You know, look at this. Absolutely gorgeous design to these buildings. They don't want you to realise just how old these sections are. Actually, they've been updated and kept to look nice and lovely. Don't get me wrong. As you can see, Astrakhan, very similar design to Kazan. Right, and I think we'll move on to, was it Derbent? So this was down in Dagestan. So this is the section of Dagestan, right there. That's Derbent. In 1607, this map has Derbent, and as you can see, this is what happens when they don't look after the walls. So this is what occurs when they don't update the walls and keep them looking nice. Look at that. Love to go to these places and visit. Is this old Tartarian Empire then? Is this what we're looking at? It looks gorgeous, that, doesn't it? But anyway, so we've had a look at Derbent, we've had a look at Astrakhan, we've had a look at Kazan. We also had a look at unfortunately, at what happened to Circassia there. What else are we going to look at? And the last one, oh yeah, was Samarkand, wasn't it? And it was the capital city of Tamerlane during his stint as ruler of this empire. So Samarkand, also known as Samarkand, is a city in southeastern Uzbekistan and among the oldest continuously inhabited cities in Central Asia. There is evidence of human activity in the area of the city from the late Paleolithic era. Though there is no direct evidence of when Samarkand was founded, several theories propose that it was founded between the 8th and 7th centuries BC. Look at some of these images. So that's interesting. Alexander the Great slaying Cletus in Samarkand, which I know it's supposed to be ancient, but as we've seen from this book, perhaps the Greek Empire was not so ancient. And perhaps Alexander the Great was a lot closer in time to Tamerlane, because here he is slaying Cletus in Samarkand. really does look like it's been wiped out, doesn't it? Samarkand from space, apparently. That looks like someone's just nuked that bit in the middle, doesn't it? Looks like someone's firebombed it, which is definitely something we've seen in other parts of the world. I think I'm going to call that the end of that video. It was supposed to be what the modern Tartarian cities look like today, and it basically turned into a rant. But I hope you enjoyed it. Anyway, I'll put some nice music over, light some candles, we'll all have a great time. But no, thank you for tuning in, and if you could hit that like and subscribe button. What else do I need to plug? Oh yeah, maybe donate to me, because, you know, this takes time, and I need money. So, thank you very much for joining.